Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about Boris Johnson, his natal chart, and the coronavirus. And I'm going to talk about some natal placements, some transits that might be connected with him contracting this. Now, many of you may have heard that Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of Britain, really has contracted coronavirus recently, and he announced this according to Wikipedia on March 27th. And the thing about this is there are a number of indicators that I saw as far as natal placements and as far as transits that might that indicate a propensity for this for getting the coronavirus. Now, the thing about this is, the fact that he has his sun in Gemini alone can be an indicator of that as far as a physical issue, because Gemini can be connected with breathing. And we're talking about, of course, the coronavirus is associated, some of the symptoms can include breathing issues. Now, the thing about this too, now going on to, and he has, and the thing about this is the sun in astrology, of course, can be connected with the physical body, though the ascendant may be more. The ascendant does dominate the appearance, and I do believe people, as far as their ascendant goes, they're generally going to have more issues connected with them physically that's associated with their ascendant, that corresponds with their ascendant sign in contrast to the sun sign. But anyway, the thing about it is, the first thing that stood out to me, pretty obvious thing, in his natal chart, he does have Pisces on the sixth house cusp. And Pisces, the sixth house can be connected with health-related issues. And of course, Pisces can be associated with diseases that can't be eradicated, and issues that are associated with mucus as well, because Pisces can be associated with the mucous membrane. Now, the thing about this is, or membranes, whatever it may be. Now, another thing that he has in his natal chart, he has Chiron in Pisces in the sixth house. Now, Chiron is not just necessarily about emotional wounds and suffering. It can correspond and correlate with physical dilemmas. And having Chiron in Pisces very close to his sixth house cusp, it indicates a greater propensity, perhaps, for some issues, health-related issues that are Pisces-related. And again, we're going back to diseases that may not, Pisces can be associated with diseases that can't be eradicated. Now, he may have also had some issues in the past, perhaps with, lymphatic system, or feet or toes, and in general weakness. Pisces can be also about general weakness and lethargy. So it tells me that he might have been these issues. With the coronavirus, can also, as far as symptoms go, can be connected with general weakness, lethargy, and, like, I don't know if this word would apply, but lassitude, because you're talking about general fatigue. Now, I don't know if that word lassitude would apply in this particular situation with Boris Johnson or the coronavirus, but it can. But we're talking about general lethargy and weakness and tiredness and fatigue, and those things can be synonymous with the zodiac sign Pisces. Now, another thing in his natal chart, he also has the ruler of one of the rulers of the sixth house posited in the eighth house, and this could be an indicator of some debilitating health-related matter that could be a virus issue, because the sixth house, again, is associated with physical health. The eighth house in astrology can be connected with viruses. Now, another thing is that that ruler that I'm talking about is Jupiter in Taurus. And Jupiter, as I've talked about in previous videos, it can be a little bit paradoxical. It could be very strongly benign and benevolent, but it could also have a tendency to enlarge and expand. Now, in some cases, this could manifest in expanding and enlarging issues with the throat, with matters with coughing. Taurus can be connected with sore throats. It can be associated with coughing as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's had those symptoms, and perhaps on a large scale, since we're talking about Jupiter. Now, another thing that I noticed too is that it's also making a long inconjunct to his Libra ascendant. And when you have inconjuncts in astrology, they can be about health related matters, and that could intensify issues as far as health related matters may go. Another thing that I noticed too in his chart, that he has Saturn in Pisces as well. Now Saturn, and it makes, you could say, a rather long inconjunct aspect to the ascendant. It falls out of the orb, what most people would use, but you can still argue, I would say, that it's a rather long inconjunct aspect to his ascendant. You're talking about inconjuncts in astrology. Again, they can be about health related matters. And Saturn in Pisces can sometimes manifest, in debilitations. And Saturn can be about debilitations at times, and difficulties, restrictions. And so, and you're talking about it being in Pisces, again, going back to diseases that may not have a cure, that can't be eradicated. It could be about general weakness, lethargy. And another thing, too, is that he also, in his chart, it's not just about this Piscean energy. There's still other things too. He also has, looking at his Venus, I thought it was interesting that he has Venus in Gemini retrograde, not far from the critical 29th degree. Now, Venus in astrology can be associated with the throat. I'm sorry, Venus can be associated with the throat. It can be associated with coughing issues and sore throats. And both of those symptoms can be connected with the coronavirus. He also has the sun making a conjunction to it, so it could shine the light, so to speak, on those issues. And the fact that it's in Gemini, well, you could say, well, maybe these are more mercurial issues, but I think how it might manifest with him, it might affect his speaking more so than the average person, his communication more so than average. And another thing too that I noticed, and when you're talking about critical degrees don't necessarily help, because and it's not at the critical degree, but it's not far from the critical 29th degree, his Venus in Gemini. And the thing about, and going retrograde, of course, going backwards, it can be, so it really, so it tells me you're looking at some issues that can be tied into this coronavirus, that because he does have, again, Venus in Gemini, and it is near the 29th degree, and it is retrograde. So anyway, now, another thing I wanted to talk about as far as his transits go now, that might be tied into this, him contracting the coronavirus. Now, at the time when he announced this on March 27th, he said, at that time, transit Neptune, making a conjunction to his natal Chiron in Pisces, in that sixth house of health. And Neptune, of course, can be about diseases, and when you're talking about Pisces, again, those that can't be eradicated or don't have a cure for, when you have that planet, and then you have that planet conjuncting Chiron. Chiron is about they could be about physical wounds as well, not just emotional or emotional suffering or regular problems. It can manifest in some cases as something on a physical related level. So it can indicate more suffering in this matter. And also too, another thing that I noticed at this time is that the transit Neptune in Pisces was also making a tight square to his Mercury in Gemini, and Mercury, of course, can be connected with breathing, and in the sign of Gemini, the sign associated with that as well. So anyway, so I think with him that also might have made, another symptom that you don't really hear talk about as far as the coronavirus goes can be associated with just general confusion. And you have Mercury in Gemini. Mercury in Gemini can have certain confusion or chaos going on anyway at times. From a mental standpoint, it might be because they got Mercury and Gemini can have a manifold thoughts going on in their head and perhaps simultaneously. This is nothing really derogatory, it's just being factual as far as Mercury in Gemini goes. Then you have transit Neptune making the square to it. It might even add a little bit more chaos and confusion. And when this happened, he probably may have likely been in a somewhat chaotic mental state, which a lot of people may be anyway if they can track this, but it might have been a little more intensified with him because of his natal placement and because of the transit associated with it. Hold on a moment, people. Well, another thing that I noticed too at this time, keep in mind too that the certain the thing about this as well is when you're talking. I mean, he also has a number of transits going on in the fourth house at this time as well. And the thing about it is Pluto is a planet in transit that's in his natal fourth house. And the thing about this is this could be an indicator in some cases of a death through a virus, because the fourth house does govern the end of life. The Pluto is associated with viruses. Now, in all likelihood, he won't die because of this, but it is a little bit. It is a transit that can give a little greater proclivity for something of this nature. And another thing too that I did notice. Okay, we're talking also about another transit he had at this time was that he had Mercury in Pisces, not far from his natal Saturn. That could be an indicator of getting news that could be somewhat depressing, that might be associated with some disease that can't be eradicated, that doesn't have a cure. And also transit Mercury in Pisces was making at the very least a long inconjunct aspect to his natal Libra ascendant, and Mercury, of course, can be about breathing issues. So those are some things that I saw that seem very distressing as far as some transits he's had, some of his natal placements that might be tied in to this coronavirus. And really, there's really not much more I want to say about this, but I did see another transit that he has, in transit Chiron in Aries is in his sixth house. And when you're talking about transit Chiron, again, we're going back to the fact that it can be about not just emotional suffering. It can be manifest in physical ailments. It could be physical wounds that somebody may have to contend with. And Aries, of course, can be associated with fevers. It can be with headaches as well. I believe headaches could actually be a symptom connected with this. You might want to confirm that and look that up. But I know fevers are, in Aries, is associated with fevers and headaches. And also too, at the time of this, when he announced that he had the coronavirus, also had transit Sun in Aries in his sixth house in his natal chart, making what you could call a long opposition to his natal ascendant. And when you're talking about transit Sun in Aries, the sixth house, sometimes this could manifest in a focus on Aries health related matters. Again, the sixth house is connected with physical health related issues. So he had he's got a number of transits that are indicators of this, of him getting the corona virus. So another thing too, on another note, that when you're talking about, this kind of issue. Now, I'm not sure if this actually, if you have somebody else the coronavirus, could it be? It could. Well, I read that it can be associated with, actually, as far as digestive issues may go, and the fact he's got, not only does he have Chiron and Pisces in the sixth house. Pisces can be about dissolving and dissipation. So it might be some something where there's issues with the digestive system that maybe aren't because of this, or probably has had some issues that with his digestive system. It would not certainly not surprise me because of this, and also having transit Neptune in that sixth house. It could be issues that at first he didn't, maybe if he, assuming he had any digestive issues, it may have been something where he wasn't really sure why this was happening. But if he does have any, it's likely because of the coronavirus, because that could be a possible symptom with it. And it wouldn't surprise me is if he has had something with the digestive system that has where it's been problematic, because he's had a number of those transits to his sixth house, including Chiron, the Sun, and Neptune. So anyway, and he also has natal Chiron and Pisces in the sixth house. So anyway, people. Oh, one last thing. I'm sorry. There's one more transit I noticed he had. He's also in his nodal return right now. The transit north node in Cancer is very close to his natal north node. And when you're talking about transits that involve the north node in astrology, they can often manifest in issues that we may have to confront or address. And the fact that it's in Cancer, it can be issues about maybe being, and in his ninth house of not just global communication, foreign traveling, that these are issues associated with more introversion, of being at home, or perhaps attributed to this coronavirus. And you're talking about issues that as far as just when you're talking about nodal return, it can really be about very significant turning points in one's life. And interestingly enough, the transit north node is not far from his natal sun. And again, the sun can be associated with the physical body, even though the ascendant is what's more dominant as far as the physical body and physical issues go. The sun can still have some connection with that. So it tells me that these are about issues that he may have to confront with the physical body. And as it gets closer to it, and it gets when the north node in Cancer transitions into Gemini at 29 degrees and becomes very close to his natal sun, these issues might be a little bit stronger. And again, being with Gemini, something with breathing issues perhaps. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.